In 1988, as the Regents were planning how Gunston Hall would celebrate the bicentennial of the United States, they thought that it would be appropriate to erect a memorial to George Mason. The Regents learned that memorials in the parks in Washington were usually just dedicated to presidents and wars.
George Mason was a very simple man, and he loved the land, and he loved his family, and he disliked politics. He would not sign the Constitution because it didn't have a Bill of Rights.
George Washington and George Mason were very good friends. Washington in reality just said, the Bill of Rights will come, but let's just sign this document, and George Mason could not do that, so he sacrificed his relationship with George Washington.
In 1791 then it was passed for a Bill of Rights, and they fashioned it after the Virginia Bill of Rights that Mason had written.
After the Regents appeared before the Senate Rules Committee and the National Capital Planning Commission to convince the members of the worthiness of George Mason, preliminary approval was given. Then the bill was introduced and passed both houses of Congress and was signed by George H.W. Bush in August of 1990. In April of 1992, a second bill authorizing a site in Area 1 for a memorial to George Mason was signed by President Bush. And the Regents were thrilled with the prospect of having a memorial in Area 1, where you find the memorials to Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. So fundraising began with a $50,000 contribution from the National Society of Colonial Dames and a $250,000 contribution from the Commonwealth of Virginia. And there were a myriad of other donors that also added to this to make the memorial possible.
The Georgia Regent had given all her members mason jars and told them to put their quarters in the mason jar. And so I thought, well, that's a good idea. So I had mason jars at one of the meetings, and most everyone took a jar. Oh, it was a beautiful day. The USS Gunston Hall, the color guard arrived and brought in the colors, and Chief Justice Rehnquist from the Supreme Court was our speaker.
I've visited the memorial numerous times, and my favorite time of year is April. As George Mason, the beautiful bronze sculptures, he's sitting there in the middle of the memorial. It's surrounded by forsythia bushes, and it's just ablaze in bright yellow with the spring bulbs blooming and the water feature. It's just quite lovely.